oh, well, if we look ridiculous, that's perfect. So we just try to up how ridiculous we look.
Welcome to Confessions of a Social Media Manager with me, Erin from Agora Pulse. Today I have with me John Thornton. John is the copywriter and social media manager for Innocent Drinks. Now, I don't need to do a grand introduction to Innocent because literally 80% of the people I've interviewed for this podcast so far have said if they weren't managing their own brands, they would want to be managing Innocent. But if you really do not know who they are the smoothie juice drink company that was founded in 1998, and you can pretty much get their drinks literally everywhere. They're as ubiquitous as Coca-Cola, but that's because they are owned by 90% of Coca-Cola. So there we go. There's a reason why so many social media managers I've talked to admire Innocent. It's because they have been the blueprint for authentic, playful, and on-trend social media strategies that has become so much more commonplace in recent years. Innocent Drinks ran so Waitrose and M&S could walk and have their Colin the Caterpillar cake spats. Innocent did that first. Now, John is the person behind all those posts. He writes their content for their Twitter, their Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. He's also worked on Innocent's TV ads and their out-of-home campaigns. He's been with the company for over 4 years and says he's just writing silly words, but I do think there's generally more to that, and I'm going to be hopefully learning more about those silly words. John's career started outside of the world of social media. He studied screenwriting at Bournemouth Uni, and then he began an illustrious career at Argos, lugging around those catalogues, he was literally lugging around those catalogues. Then in 2016, he began a copywriting career in various companies, online and in print. And it's clear that his skill as a storyteller is what fits him in so well with the Innocent brand aesthetic. And when he was asked to sum up his career so far, he said, "Somehow not fired." Welcome, John.
Hey, not fired yet.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Happy it's Friday.
It is Friday. We're meeting on a Friday, which is typically, depending on the type of social media manager that you are, either the busiest day because you've left everything to the last minute, or a chill day because no one's paying attention to you or the feeds. For me, it is the former. I don't know what it's like for you today. Is it the former or the latter?
I kind of feel like by Friday, even if you've left everything to Friday, you just get in the headset of it can wait till Monday.
Can you tell me about your day at Innocent and what your role is at Innocent? Because I've done a brief overview, but what is it like as a typical day for you?
Yeah, the copywriting, which I'm currently doing, it's very structured. So there'll be briefs that come in. Some will be big, like long-term projects. Some will be short, quick things. And that sort of contrasts a lot from my previous social media experience. So yeah, with copywriting, it's very structured. It's like, this is what we want. This is the kind of messages we want you to get across. This is when we need it by. And you're kind of like, okay, these are the things I need to write today. I've written them. I'm done. I can switch off and have a work-life balance. Whereas with certainly my social role, it was like very autonomous, like left to my own devices a lot to think of what to post, come up with how much we post about product, how much we don't post about product, what we do about that. And so that was, I mean, it's great to have that much creative freedom, but it's also like, I guess with socials never ending, like there's always more people, more comments you can reply to. You can always tweet again, and it's kind of like, I feel like if you've not done big numbers that day, you've not done enough. But yeah, so my typical day for social would be, wake up, check nothing's exploded, and then see what's going on in the world, like see what's trending, if there's any like random things popping off, think of like what we can say about that. And so a lot of our content is unplanned, and so really, unless it's like a campaign kind of thing or something that we needed a visual for, I would probably like 90% of our content I would write 5 minutes before I posted it. And like we don't really have sign off process. So we have a rule, not just on social, just Innocent in general has a rule, which is if you're 70% sure, go for it. But to be honest, I'd go as low as 40%. But yeah, so like sometimes I would, if I wasn't sure about something, I would like text my boss and be like, "Do you think it's fine to say this?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And then if I get in trouble, she's going down with me. But like my boss is very much on my level, and it's not. I think you sometimes when sometimes the sign off will be coming from at some companies it'll be coming from like people who aren't really that connected to social. Whereas when my boss was like very connected to social and understands that like being weird and going rogue is like legit strategy, and so like yeah, very rarely would something not get signed off in those circumstances. And like so there was one last year where the first day the pubs opened after January lockdown in like it was like April, and it's kind of like a classic example of how we do socials. So that date was announced like a month in advance or whatever it was, and so I could, and I should definitely have planned something in plenty of time, but I didn't. And then just like 8 a.m. on that morning, I was like, "Is there anything I can post about it?" And then I thought it'd just be funny to pretend I was drunk, and be like, "Oh, the pubs are open," but just misspell everything. And I was like, "Oh, actually, we make a drink as well." And so then I basically just wrote like, I can't remember the exact wording, but it was basically like, "Oh, the pubs are open now, but if you don't want to get drunk on a Monday morning, you can always have a smoothie," but all like written as if I was drunk. And that definitely felt like a naughty thing to tweet. I can't quite put my finger on why. I guess like pretending to be drunk is questionable from a company. But I was 70% sure, so I tweeted it, and just like people loved it. Especially on LinkedIn. Like, so it did fine on Twitter and Facebook. It got like 200-300 retweets, a couple of thousand likes, sort of thing. But everyone was sharing it on LinkedIn, like basically all the like, sort of marketing community, and there it was getting like one person's post got 10,000 likes, one person's post got 6,000. Like LinkedIn is like our dark horse, like secret.
I was gonna say, because like the aura of LinkedIn is very much like I interviewed this little Gen Z twerp and he turned up in a wetsuit and this is why they don't deserve jobs. Hustle and grind. That is generally what LinkedIn feels like sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's why you can actually do really well on there, because it's full of so much boring, wanky crap that if you if you have a one nugget of gold in that river of silt, then actually like it really stands out. And yeah, we've had other stuff which will perform fine on the normal channels, but absolutely cleans up on LinkedIn. And I think you're starting to see like so that Dating App Thursday, like a huge amount of their fame seems to have come from LinkedIn and from doing marketing stunts, which everyone shares on LinkedIn. Because I mean, I was looking at some figures for a presentation the other week, and LinkedIn in the UK has like 30 million users or something, and Instagram has 31 million users. So it's basically the same size audience, but much less saturated with good content. So you do something good on LinkedIn, and it's going to do numbers.
So, is there any aspect of your job that's like data driven? Like, I know, like, if you're coming at the post, like, this is going to be the vibe today, is there anything where you actually go by the numbers? Is that mostly limited to social media campaigns that are quite well thought out and got like comms involved, marketing involved, and things like that?
I mean, even those aren't well thought out. We'll check we'll do like a weekly report, check the numbers. We'll do a monthly report, and also like, I'm constantly checking how a post is doing, and yeah, so we will sort of be like, these posts did well, these posts didn't. What was good about these? What wasn't good about these? And kind of what can we learn? And so like a lot of it just the random off the cuff stuff where we're not talking about drinks. That's sort of like our day-to-day stuff. But then we'll look at those successful posts and we'll think, how can we apply like these techniques or these tactics to posts about products? We do things like I ranked like every sort of potato, like roast at the top, hash brown second, etc. And everyone's got an opinion on that.
Wait, did you put hash brown second?
I can't remember if they're a top three potato.
Carry on. We just interrupted by potatoes, but like I will go back to that later about that potato list. I will have to fight you on that later.
But yeah, so you dangle that out, and people are going to bite. Like no one, just as no one can resist. Everyone's going to have a different opinion, and so they're going to engage. Basically, they're going to either comment and argue with you, or better still, they'll quote retweet you and be like, no, the actual order is this. And so then suddenly, absolutely everyone's sharing your post. Like we did this on National Potato Day, and then there was like that big chips company, and their posts were not getting as much engagement as we were on National Potato Day. And so then it's like, okay, so we've dangled this carrot, or potato in this case, and everyone's bitten. So how can we now dangle stuff but with our drinks? And so then that's when we start doing things like we launched a blue drink and people thought it was green, and we all had a big argument, and it reached like a gazillion people and got more retweets than a John Lewis Christmas advert. That was like our kind of like biggest, most successful one, and that just the only reason we kind of did that was because of other like just random stuff we'd done. But I guess like going back to what you were saying about data, we don't. I think we take a lot of the sort of industry-wide stats. We take them with a pretty big pinch of salt. So yeah, like when people are like, oh, the best performing posts are like 6-second videos or 3-second videos, and you've got to have your brand in at this moment and things like that. I think we're more like that might overall be best performing. The algorithm might sort of favour that more than anything, but what people favour is like good content, and so you can kind of you can do everything by the numbers, but if it's not actually good, it's still gonna flop. Whereas you can do stuff which isn't completely suited to the algorithm, but if everyone actually likes it and engages, it will still go far and do numbers. Like we try and be like a bit considerate of the algorithm. You don't want to like tie your shoelaces together, but also not being bound completely by it.
Is there a sentiment in the business that like, because the innocent drinks are like just everywhere and have been everywhere for a long time, is that it's sort of that does the virality of your post actually contribute to the sales of the drink, or is it more like the drinks are everywhere, they're part of meal deals, they're just as like you would pick up an instant drink as you would just pick up water? Is it just like the product sales themselves do what you want on social just to make it bring in brand awareness? Are they ever connected with the actual product?
So I guess brand awareness is like kind of our main goal. So the main thing we measure is like impressions, how many people we're reaching. But we have also we've done some work to show that it is driving money. So we did a project a few years ago called econometrics, which is the worst marketing word I've ever heard. I don't know, it's just like 3 big sounding words strung together. But so basically what we did for that, and it wasn't just social, it was like they took 3 years of marketing activity. So every billboard, every TV ad, every print ad we'd run, every social post, and then they lined it up against sales and looked at like where the peaks and troughs had been and what had been the most effective. And so I had to go through 3 years worth of social media posts and get the stats for how many likes, shares, and whatever we got each week. And we don't. I only have the native social media channels. We don't really have a budget for fancy analytic stuff. So I had to like manually count quite a lot of stuff, and it took like 2 whole.
I have to interrupt you. You don't have Innocent doesn't have budget for a social media management tool on a bigger scale.
I'll probably get in trouble if I go into what we do and don't have budget for. It's not our priority. Like I think partly going back to what you were saying about sales and things like that, because we're not an e-commerce, we don't have any element of that. I think that does take a bit of the pressure off, and it allows us to have a bit more fun, because there's never we're never trying to send people through to something else. It's more about when they're in the supermarket, bottle of our orange juice in one hand, bottle of someone else's in the other hand. Like, if they're the same price, same quantity, etc. But if they've had a nice time with us on social, that can kind of be the deciding factor, or they've laughed at a billboard and things like that, because it's not the biggest driver of sales potentially. I mean, I don't know enough about the data to know if it is or isn't, but like, yeah, like some of these platforms, when they cost like a salesperson rang me up with one that cost like 33 grand, and I was like, well, we could just hire someone for that. Like, I'd much rather a person than some of the tools. I'm now worried Agora Pulse. What's Agora Pulse? Is it a software thing?
That's one of the best social media management tools out there.
Oh yeah, but so that econometrics thing counted 3 years worth of social media posts, and that said that our ROI was 215%. So yeah, we'll take that. Or like the blue drink thing I mentioned, where like everyone on the internet was telling us it was green, and we just kept answering back, being like, "Nah, it's blue, and we did that for like 4 days straight. And then over that weekend, everyone went out and started buying us blue drink and sending us pictures and being like, "No, it is green. Look, I've got it." Or like some were like, "Oh, it does look a bit blue in person." And so yeah, when like everyone's going out and sending you pictures that they've bought your drink because of your post, then you're like, that's when you're putting in like company-wide meetings and being like, "Look what we did," and kind of people don't question you for about 6 months after that.
Good, like it's good that you get people off your back after doing that. That's all any social media manager wants, really. So like it's clear that like success on social media for you is just a crap ton of engagement.
Yeah, I get. Well, yeah, it's interesting because so the number one metric we measure is impressions, but you only really get impressions from engagement, and so yeah, they're kind of like infinitely linked, aren't they? But yeah, that's definitely what success looks like for us, like going viral, basically.
So yeah, because I mean we've talked to like loads of different types of social media managers, and they're all of them sort of dread wanting to go viral. They don't want to hear it, but it's basically your day to day, and you seem pretty comfortable with it.
I think like when if someone comes into a meeting room and is like, "You need to make us go viral," yeah, I don't want to hear that. Like, you want people to understand that. I really like so. I've got a friend called Richard who works at Monzo, and Monzo used to do they do kind of a Spotify Wrapped, but for your spending, and loads and loads of people share it on social. And he said how he sort of their whole year on social builds to that day, like that one big moment where they know people are going to share it. Like, how can they maximize on that by like keeping an engaged audience all year, keeping people posting about Monzo a bit, so then on that day everyone goes nuts for it. And I think that's kind of how I think about us as well. So we're kind of again like the blue drink thing that only happened because the first few people who were like core fans knew that if they replied, we'd reply back, kind of thing. Whereas if we had a very unengaged audience who never really looked at our posts and never really bothered to comment, then it wouldn't have like all our successful stuff comes from interacting with people. And to be honest, even when you look at quite a lot of other brands, that's generally, it's rare that it'll be like just one tweet that goes viral with nothing, no comments added to it, and no like interaction. Like, there's normally like, if it's the Greg's vegan sausage roll, like them snapping back at the like angry meat eaters was like what really kind of sent that over. The Weetabix and Beans stuff was all the brands getting involved like took that to another level. Or the M&S, Aldi, Colin Caterpillar that you mentioned, like the fact that it was like multiple posts and like that social media managers kept going at it. Like, it wasn't just one post kind of thing.
So you'd say that the key to going viral really is focusing on interactions.
I think that's definitely a part of it, and like there has to be a reason for people to share it. And I think the common denominator between those examples is a sense that the social media manager is going rogue, and that then they're probably not allowed to be doing what they're doing, but they're doing it anyway. Like, people being like, "Oh, I can't believe that social media manager's done that." I think you would find that as a running thread for a lot of viral moments. Not all, but like, and that's what we really try and tap into like all the time. So I would I'd almost go out of my way to tweet at all hours of the day, so that we really want to get across the feeling that there is a person behind that account. It's not designed by committee, 20 executives just cramming product messages in. We want people to feel like there's just an idiot at home being stupid, and that's where I come in. Definitely qualified for that.
Why do you think that brands have taken this route now to make people feel like there is somebody there on the end of that tweet? Like, why do you think that's happened?
I think because it's successful. So like the examples I mentioned, like all kind of shows it. And I guess like the whole it's not a surprise that it's successful, because the whole reason brands should be on social is to like have that more human connection. Like that's what you can do. That's like the strength of social versus other channels. You can be quick, you can be reactive, you can have like one-to-one conversations and mass market conversations like in a way that you can't on other channels. So it's like it's just using the medium to its like strength, really. Like you can't do a lot of that stuff on a billboard. You can write something silly on a billboard, and you can still get across the idea that someone's gone rogue on that billboard. But billboards are expensive, tweets are cheap.
Just put that in a book or something. That last bit. You gotta write that down. You gotta write that down. You can write that down for your thing, whatever you need to use it for. So if you're like, you mentioned you were sort of like pushing yourself to tweet at all hours of the day. What is your work-life balance like then in a job that is like really, really dependent on capitalizing on what's going on in that morning?
Yeah, it wasn't always great. So it's definitely in the copyright role. It's definitely a bit easier, as I mentioned at the start. But I think I would only tweet at all hours when I wanted to and when I felt like there's something worth saying and something fun to say, kind of thing. So, for instance, like we'd live tweet the Great British Bake Off and we'd live tweet Eurovision, and those would always go down a storm for us. So we'd get generally like 1 million impressions from an episode of Bake Off. Last year's Eurovision, we got 10 million impressions in a night, and that was like all organic. All it cost is my entire social life. But yeah, so it's like I'd only tweet at night if it was like a fun tweet to tweet, and if it was like, and then I think it's very kind of certainly like I guess the social media managers in my kind of area and style, like it's the kind of stuff we got into it for. Like,
so if you're that committed to the brand, I bet your own profiles, your private profiles are dead. They got nothing on there.
They're locked to private. There's I have about 100 followers on Instagram, even less on Twitter. I don't think I've tweeted since I've worked at Innocent, to be honest. Which, yeah. But yeah, so it feels like weirdly like almost hypocritical to be a social media manager who doesn't post on social media, but there we are.
The way that Innocent works is like it's part of like, I'll go as far to say as like a national consciousness, or like the way that you do it. So it's like it is basically how you would expect a friend to tweet at you. So there's going to be some concessions that your actual profiles are totally
out of material by the end of the day.
Yeah. So how many direct reports do you have in your social media team? Like, how many people are working with?
Zero.
There's nobody.
I'm the direct report. So in the team, so there'd be the head of digital, which is my old boss. Then there'd be the social media manager, so that was me, and the content creator, so the person. So I'd do the words, they'd do the pictures. They'd try and fail to take a picture of a blue drink, and they would go viral. And then we've got our customer service team, who we call People's Champs, because we're innocent and we give people quirky titles. And they do a lot of the chat between people, and as well as like any customer service issues, and they also pick up all the emails or phone calls or the handwritten letters from nice people. And so there's our team's between 3 and 6, depending on how you look at it. So 3 of us like creating the content, and 3 responding to people.
It's clearly working, but like, how have you felt about it? Has there been times where you're like, I really wish there was just someone else around to do things?
It's tricky, an extra brain in a brainstorm on one hand would be nice, but I think also, I think it helps that it's feeling like it helps it to feel like it's coming from one person when it is mostly coming from one person. And yeah, again, like the work-life balance stuff we mentioned, sometimes that probably strayed into not completely healthy, which maybe like more people would be more like there'd be slightly less of that. But I think our setup works pretty well. Like with anything, there's always stuff that could be improved, but equally, like we're pretty happy with how we do. We do all right.
So, what do you think are the essential skills for a good social media manager in 2022?
I guess it does. So we've talked a couple of like there's lots of different types of social media managers, and if I was at like a big e-commerce, like somewhere like, I don't know, ASOS or something, I probably would need different skills. So like more data driven, more tactical. Although I think there's still room. Really, there you'd want one person to have those skills, and you'd still want someone to have my more sort of stuff. So like when ASOS do like that girl who got grief for wearing a dress, and so then they made her a model on their site and stuff like that. Like that still needs that quirky reactive streak. But yeah, I think so. Certainly, like the way we do social, I think the skills you need is like creativity and being able to like think outside the box and kind of go against the grain, and writing skills. I think so. Not every social media manager, a natural progression for them would be into copywriting, or not every copywriter would progress into social media. But like the way we do it, they are like pretty closely linked. So yeah, we kind of need that for our social. Not everyone would. And then like calm under pressure and in crises. I mean, crisis is like a strong word for what actually happens on social, but like people getting cross and stuff like that, and being able to think of ways out of that is always good.
Which leads me quite nicely onto my next question: is what is the biggest mistake you've made on the socials, and how have you fixed it?
One of the big ones. So we have a dairy-free range, so like almond, hazelnut, etc. And we're not allowed to call them milk, and that makes it quite hard to talk about them. And so a couple of Octobers ago, we came up with Conker milk. So as a fake like stunt, like it's autumn, you can milk some conkers, and then it turns out that conkers are poisonous, and quite a lot of people got either they some of them genuinely believed we'd made conker milk and were just going to willfully poison people, and and the other half saw that it was a joke in inverted commas, but didn't find it funny. They were like, "Oh, other people will believe this and go out and poison themselves." And so it's not ideal. I'd like poisoning people generally not a good look for your brand, I'd say.
Who told you it was poison? Was it the customers who told you it was poison? Or was it just somebody at Innocent HQ that was like, dudes, it's poisonous?
To be fair to us, / makes us look even worse, before we put it live, we realised we Googled it to see if it was actually possible. And we're like, oh, they're poisonous. And we were just like, it's probably fine. Like, it's just a bit of poison. It won't hurt anyone. Other people did not see it like that. But so then what we did was we deleted it pretty quickly. I don't always delete stuff if it's getting heat, but you kind of, we'll get onto that when we get to a second mistake. But with this one, it was like, it wasn't getting heat from like trolls with no pictures and like strings of letters. It was like genuine humans, and like they had like genuine concerns, and so we're like, and also it wasn't getting any positive reception. If something's making some people happy, annoying some other people, maybe I'd leave it. But when it's just like when it's not making anyone happy, there's no point in leaving it. So we deleted it, and then we deleted it pretty quick, so it hadn't gone very far. And then we ummed and ahed about whether we needed to put out like a statement or not. And we were kind of leaning towards no, because we were like, well, we don't want to bring more attention to it. But then we were like, oh, what if someone did eat a conker off the back of this? So we were like, okay, we do need to tell people not to eat conkers. But then we were like, we're going to look ridiculous if we tell people to not eat conkers. But then we were like, oh, well, if we look ridiculous, that's perfect. So we just tried to up how ridiculous we looked, and so like a very formal looking statement, and then we just begged people to not eat conkers, and like it was like a 400-word statement, and we had the phrase "do not eat or milk conkers" in it like 20 times. And then people just found it hilarious, and they were all like messaging us and being like, well, I'm going to go out and eat a conker. And so then we'd be like tweeting back, being like, please don't do this, do not eat conkers, and we'd like sharing it all, and it like blew up. We got like reached like 10 million people, which the original conker milk was never going to do. So it actually like worked out better. So yeah, we very much see calamities as opportunities. Another little soundbite for you.
Write that down. Write that down for you.
So there was a good one, Christmas 2020. We made like an ad just for social, like a Christmas ad where we were like, basically we wrote like a children's Christmas story, but like for adults. So it had like a rhyme scheme and like watercolors. But it was like talking about how Santa was going to be furloughed and things like that. And then we're like, oh, we're keeping him safe with this hazmat suit we've made him. And we posted that, and for 3 days it did fine. Like on the first day, everyone was like, oh, this is nice, this is cute. It didn't set the world on fire, but it did fine. And then obviously day 2, day 3, no one's commenting. By then it's blown over. And then day 4, it just landed in some weird COVID denying circles, and they all got very cross, including some celebrity COVID deniers. And so we were just like, I was just in a meeting about something else with my boss, like a video call, and I just checked for notifications. I was like, oh, we're getting all this abuse from all these trolls. And then that was different. So yeah, like on this time, previously everyone had liked it, and so it was just like these people are unhinged. And so there, like, especially with all like the other like the conkers and stuff we've been through before, we were like, okay, this is not a bad situation. Like, we've been through everyone's like, no one's a massive fan of these COVID deniers. These are good people to annoy. And so we wrote like a piss take apology where we were like, oh, we're really sorry for saving Christmas. Like, what were we thinking? We're going to boycott ourselves. And then we just did what I think probably every social media manager wants to do, which is just said exactly what we wanted to say to these people. Like, going through one by one, like, one of them was like, oh, your marketing department should all jump in the fire. And we were like, well, there's social distancing, so we're going to have to go on one at a time. And someone's like, oh, don't quit your day job. We're like, oh, this is our day job. My favourite one, someone was like, I'm in the supermarket right now, and I've just...
Where'd they hide it?
Yeah, we were like... And so we shared that, and we were like, can you imagine just being in Sainsbury's and watching someone staggering around, like, hiding our juice behind the Pringles? Like, yeah, and so it went way bigger than it originally gone, because we were happy to, like, double down and get involved and go a bit rogue.
That's so interesting. I don't think I've come across a company that when those things happen, they double down. That's probably the first time I've heard it, and then that embrace of that.
It's tricky because it's like, if you judge it wrong, then the doubling down is what really screws you. But if you're like, yeah, you've got to make that judgment whether you're in the wrong or not, and then just back yourselves.
Is there not a point where you get like high off your supply, where you're like, yeah, man, I'm like killing it? Where is there anyone else who has to sort of like take a step back? Because I would get like really excited myself. I'd be like, yeah, no one can tell me what to do if I was able to actually say what I wanted to say.
Yeah, but then the next day your next tweet will get like 2 retweets, and that brings you back down.
It does, yeah. Is there anything exciting that Innocent's working on the moment that they can tell us about, any campaigns that they've got up their sleeve?
I don't know if I am allowed to talk about that or not. So I'm going to say there's lots of very exciting stuff we're working on. So keep your eyes on the supermarkets. But also, I think, especially with social, like, you actually don't really know where the exciting stuff's going to come from. Like, I can only think of one viral moment where I would say we've properly planned it, and it all like went to plan. All our other big moments have been like as much of a surprise to me as anyone else.
What was the one that was planned?
So a couple of years ago, we launched a breakfast smoothie. So it has like oats and cinnamon in and stuff like that. And we were like, oh, what can we do to get that viral? And like, some people in the department are like, oh, talk about oats and oh, talk about cinnamon. There's nothing interesting in oats. But we're like, oh, breakfast. What else do you have for breakfast? And so, long story short, we made a pretend baked bean smoothie, and we got Heinz on board. So we had like their branding, like their logo, their color, and so then we put these two smoothies next to each other. So there's the real one and then the beans one, which we'd like made. So it was just a bottle filled with beans with a label we printed off. And they were like, oh, we've made a couple of new breakfast smoothies. We played it quite cool. Like, we didn't really big them up. We just like, oh yeah, these breakfast smoothies we made, and then like everyone was violently sick basically, and was like, oh, a bean smoothie, that sounds horrible. And they were all quote tweeting it, and all saying how disgusting it looked. But like, whilst they're doing that oat smoothie is getting absolutely everybody's feed, and you know, the handmade sign being like new breakfast smoothie is in everyone's feed. And that one we'd like planned them out, so that exactly what we'd planned to happen, and it just all went to plan, which the only time anything has in our social.
So it's like a campaign like based on disgust, like the visceral feeling of disgust and provoking that in people, which really worked.
Yeah, I guess maybe like disgust is maybe I'm being a little bit strong. It's more like slightly gross.
I say disgust because I can't stand beans. I can't stand them. Like, the one food I just will not eat. Like, no. That's why I'm going for the disgust angle. So if I saw that, I'd be like, I'd rather die.
But even even the people who don't mind eating baked beans, so there was basically where it came from was maybe like 7 years ago on Facebook. There was a Facebook page called like Beans in Unexpected Places, or like Beans in Places They Shouldn't Be, or something like that. Like, and people just like fill a crock with beans, or they filled like a clock or a book and things like that, and it did like huge numbers. And so we were just like, so that was one of the things we did have to get signed off and like show senior people, because it was like a product campaign. But that deck we just had like, oh, wacky products and brand partnerships do well, so like cream egg mayonnaise and things like that. So we had those, and we were like, so this is that plus this beans thing, which also did well. And so it's just two like proven things that do well on social that we're putting together. And it was like the easiest sign-off process I've had. Everyone was just like, yeah, that makes sense. People were a little bit disgusted, but that's what we wanted.
So where do you think the future of social media is right now that you're a company that's sort of like so many companies have caught up with what you've been doing for so long? Where do you think the future is with that kind of authenticity on crack, which is basically what it is?
I mean, I think there'll be more LinkedIn stuff, like I was saying, and so like for what Thursday are doing. I think a lot more companies are going to start doing stuff like that, and kind of realize that it's as legitimate a marketing channel as any other. Obviously now, like, TikTok's huge. Like, that's not a revelation for anyone, but like, it's clearly like over the last maybe 18 months, it's shifted from brands, including us, being like, is it here to stay? Is it a phase? Do we need to be involved? Whereas now, like, every brand has a TikTok. Whether they should is a different matter. But yeah, so like that stuff's going to continue, and then all this like metaverse and NFT and all that stuff, I'm sure people are going to keep talking about it. Whether it works, who knows? I don't actually know what any of it is. I'm not going to be doing any tweets in the metaverse just yet, or I don't know if you can tweet in the metaverse.
I would not be a good social media manager for a social media management company if I actually did say out loud, I really do not get the metaverse, but like I just don't. Do you know what I mean? Like I watched The Matrix, right? And like that sucked for people. So like why would I want to like go do that? Like no, unless it comes with the goo that they like stay in, because the goo in the Matrix pods look like really good for your skin. But other than that, I don't think I would want to try and do that.
You're disgusted by beans, but you're not disgusted by sort of cybernetic goo.
But the thing is, when they were coming out those pods, their skin looked really good. Do you know what I mean? Like Neo looked good, like this flawless skins. I'm sure like goo had like stem cells in it, so like I wouldn't mind that goo for like preserving the moisture barrier on my skin. But beans, no, I don't think beans can actually do that. So yeah, I would prefer Matrix goo.
Fair.
What was the one thing that you think clinched your interview at Innocent?
So I interview very badly, as you've probably found out. But so basically, the way my career's gone is I have to get the job with a CV and then cling on in the interview, if that makes sense. Like like I'm gonna. I basically, if you imagine like exams where there's like two parts to it, I have to score so highly on the first part that I can fail the second part and still pass. I think what probably helped was, so to my interview, I basically looked up at what some of their customers were saying, and like I went on like a morning before they'd reply to them or something, looked at what people had tweeted them, and then I wrote examples of what I would say to them, and so I took like solid examples of this is what I would do in this job, and you can do that in your application as well, and so yeah, sometimes I would do that in certain places, but basically like in the application itself, just tried very hard to get across, to show what I could do and not just be like, I've worked here for 17 months and this has gone up by 21%.
So like proper examples, like go in there with a portfolio of like, this is what I think you should be doing and how I'm going to do it for you.
Not so much that, more just like, basically I use the Star Wars crawl, but write about myself and just make it all weird and stupid. And then and like behind the entire thing, I frame it not as if I'm applying to Innocent Drinks, it was framed as if I'm applying to be like Darth Vader's social media manager or something. And just made it fucking weird.
What was the first social media site you signed up to?
MySpace.
What is the one social media site you would get rid of with a snap of your fingers?
LinkedIn.
Who has the worst social media presence?
I guess like a far right racist.
Who has the best social media presence?
Everyone who's not a far right racist.
If you weren't running Innocent's brand, who would you be running on social media?
So I'd like to run a toilet company social media, like not particularly a brand, just I would like to run a toilet company's social, and I would just make it filthy. I'd encourage people to send pictures of poo, and I would rank them in a segment of content I would call top of the plops.
You've thought about this a lot.
Yeah, I use them as like a case study in presentations, but they're not real, so I get it's like hypothetical. But yeah.
How does it feel to be like that position in Devil Wears Prada where they're like 100 girls would kill for your job? What does that feel like?
I don't really think about that. I don't think about it like that. Like I kind of more I look at what like other, whenever any other brand goes viral, I'm like, crap, I haven't gone viral today. They have, like, oh god, that social media management must be so much better than me. That's what I think about. I don't think that. Yeah, I try not to think about the other stuff. So
thank you so much to John for joining us on Confessions of a Social Media Manager. John, where can people find you?
You can add me on LinkedIn, especially if you want me to do freelance work for you or speak at a conference. But then, as we discussed, I don't really use the other ones, so there's not much point adding them.